Wow, it sure is hot outside. You know what's even hotter than the temperature though? The Pixel 3a. I've been using the Pixel 3a for the past 9 months as my primary phone. So I thought I would just share my thoughts on it and why exactly I choose to use this phone. The Pixel 3a has all 5 of the essentials that you need to have in a phone. It has a great camera, it has a great design, it has a great screen, it has great performance, and it has great battery life. The Pixel is called the Pixel for a reason, and that is because the camera on this thing is fantastic. It is one of, if not the best smartphone in a camera right now. So this device has a 12 megapixel back firing camera. It's a single camera, and then it has an 8 megapixel selfie camera. The back camera can record video at 4K 30 frames per second, or you can do 1080p 60 FPS. Here are just a few samples from the Pixel 3a camera. Now I have tons of photos, I mean hundreds of photos that have been taken with the Pixel 3a. Here are just a few of them that I'm showing you to just kind of show off what pictures from this phone look like. Now the Pixel 3a, just like all Pixels before it, uses HDR plus technology. So what that does is when you hit the shutter button, it takes a few frames from before you hit the shutter button and a few frames from after you hit the shutter button, combines them into one image, and then thus creates a better looking image. So the sky might be more vibrant, shadows may be truer to life, that kind of stuff. The Pixel also has a night sight mode, which is a mode that you can scroll to. You select night sight, and then it captures a bunch of light from around wherever you are, and creates a brighter picture that you can see, which is useful for night. Thus why it's called night sight. And then another cool feature is that within the night sight mode, if the phone detects that it is on a tripod or is stabilized and is pointing at the sky, it will activate astrophotography mode. So it takes a picture of the stars. Now, this is not going to be instantaneous like HDR Plus is. When you're using HDR Plus on the Pixel, the moment that you tap the shutter button, it takes the picture. There's no waiting time. But when you're using night sight or astrophotography, night sight, when you tap it, it usually takes around 5 seconds to capture an image, so not a whole long time. When you're using astrophotography mode and you aim at the sky, it can take 5 minutes to capture the image. So that's why you need to have it stabilized and needs to collect as much light as possible. And I could not get many pictures of the stars because where I live there's a lot of light pollution, so it's kind of hard to see the stars. But I did take one image when I was up north and there wasn't quite as much light pollution. I'll show you that picture right now. It doesn't look the best. If I went out further where I could see the stars better, then I probably could have gotten a better shot. But it's cool anyways that you can take pictures of the stars or the moon or that kind of stuff when you want to. As for the design of the phone, one of the headlines that I remember when the Pixel 3 first came out was, "It's plastic and it's fantastic." And I don't think that could be more true. The design feels great. The back, it is made out of plastic. The entire back body is made out of plastic, and then the front of the screen is made out of dragon tail glass. Now, both of these might seem like a bad thing, but the back plastic is not some glossy, cheap plastic. It actually feels really nice, and it feels similar to the Pixel 3. I used to own a Pixel 3 that had a glass back, and when switching to this, it really doesn't seem all that different. The only thing that I noticed comparing the two was that the Pixel 3 back was a little cooler to the touch because it is glass. But the back, it feels great. It doesn't feel cheap at all. So you've got the two-tone design. You've got the bottom, which is like a matte plastic, which includes the fingerprint sensor that is also a matte plastic, and the top half, which is a glossy plastic, which from what I have seen doesn't scratch easily, but your usage may vary depending upon if you're using a case or if you're not using a case, that kind of thing. And then the front glass, the front screen part of it, not the screen, just the glass, is dragon tail glass. which again might seem like a cheap thing that may be worse than Gorilla Glass. But actually, when like doing tests, when you look online or whatever, it seems comparable to like Gorilla Glass 3 or 4. Like it doesn't. It's just a different company making this different glass, which isn't seen on many phones. But I mean, this is a great use case for it. I haven't had the glass scratched or anything, and it doesn't attract fingerprints very easily. It's got a nice oleophobic coating on it. It seems very nice to me. The form factor as well, when just looking at the Pixel 3a, it is small. The regular version of it is one of the smallest phones that you can buy today, which I really enjoy because I always put my phone in my pocket. That's how I bring it around. I don't have a purse or anything. I don't hold on to it all the time. I don't leave it in the car. I have it on me all the time in my pocket. When you have these big flagship phones like a OnePlus 7T or something, you can't have that in your pocket all the time because when you're bending over or running or something like that, it's just in there all the time and you can feel it. It's just this big thing. When you have a small phone, it's so much easier to take around. So I wish that phones were smaller. This is just kind of a little mini rant on that, but this phone is a fantastic size to bring around. So like I mentioned earlier, there is a fingerprint sensor on the back, a rear-facing fingerprint sensor, which works very well. It works better than the original Pixel that I used to have. That I found didn't work well in some situations where your hands were maybe a little sweaty or something from the summer, or you had some dirt or something on them. This one seems to work much better, and I think one of the main things is just that it's a matte sensor instead of a glossy one like on that phone. But it works great. I think it works better than like Face ID on the iPhone sometimes. It's just a reliable little way to get into your phone. You can use it for pretty much any app that supports fingerprint sensor sign-ins, like banking apps, that kind of stuff. It's great. Another thing that is great on this phone is that it has a headphone jack. And it really depends on the person you ask whether or not that is a feature that they need or features that they don't need. For me personally, I use the headphone jack every day. Not necessarily for headphones. Maybe if I'm mowing the lawn, I'll put on some of those little Apple ear pods that go in your ears. But I connect it to like speakers and stuff, like in my basement. I connect it to like my surround sound setup or whatever. And then upstairs I connect it to another speaker, in my room another one. They all just use the auxiliary input, so I use it all the time. So for me, it's great having that headphone jack. For others who might just use Bluetooth headphones, or you use Chromecast enabled devices, speakers, that kind of stuff, and you don't need a headphone jack, well, at least it's here for you to use if you want to. You never have to use it if you don't want to, but it's great to have this feature, especially considering that you don't have to charge headphones if you need them for some reason or something like that. Again, it really depends on the person, but the headphone jack here, having it, is great because you can still use USB-C accessories. Say you have some USB-C headphones, which there aren't many of them, but say that you do. You can still plug them in there and the audio still works. And then you can also use headphones that work from the headphone jack. It's great to have, and the quality of the headphone jack is good as well. It's not quite up to the level of the LG V series with their quad DAC. It's not quite that, but it's not as bad as the original Pixel's headphone jack was either. It's a good middle ground. It's kind of what the iPhone headphone jacks used to be, and I think their dongles are pretty similar. But it has good quality audio, which I think is great. And while I'm on the topic of audio, the speakers that are built into the Pixel 3a are also great as well. They are loud, they are vibrant, they really don't sound tinny or anything like that. They sound nice when you put it up to full volume, and you obviously don't have to put it up to full volume, but it's, again, better than the original Pixel. I keep saying that, I know, but it is. Because you have the bottom firing speaker, and then you have the earpiece, which is used as a speaker as well. So you have a stereo set. It's not stereo front-facing speakers. There aren't two sets like on the Pixel 3 or the Pixel 2. but it sounds just as loud. Again, comparing it to the Pixel 3a, the audio coming out of here sounds just as good and just as loud as the Pixel 3a. Also, the buttons on the Pixel 3a are nice and clicky and responsive. You're not going to feel that these feel cheap to anyone. Volume rocker works nicely. Power button clicks in just as you would expect it to. And then the vibration motor is great. It is one of the best vibration motors on any phone. The iPhone obviously is going to be number one. It has that haptic engine. It can do a variety of different things with that. But for Android phones, the Pixel lineup, and even this budget Pixel 3a, it has a fantastic vibration motor. Moving on to the screen of this device. The screen is an AMOLED display, and it hits a peak brightness of around 450 nits. So it's not the brightest display out there, but it is AMOLED, so you get those nice vibrant colors and deep blacks. It's not quite as vibrant as, say, a flagship Samsung device, but the colors are poppy, and it's what you would expect in an AMOLED display. It is very nice. And the display panel is from Samsung rather than from LG, like it was with the smaller Pixel 3, which I felt had some black smearing issues when I used to own that device. But overall, this display is just a really quality display. You're not going to notice much wrong with it. Again, it's not quite as good as a flagship iPhone like the iPhone 11 Pro or a flagship Samsung device like the Galaxy S20, but it is still a very nice display, much better than like an LCD display. And then for the aspect ratio, this phone has an 18.5 by 9 aspect ratio, so it's taller but not quite as wide as some other phones, which makes it easy to hold. So this is a small device already, but when the device is, you could say, just taller and thinner, again, it makes handling it very easy. Moving on to the fourth essential of a phone, and that is performance. So performance on this phone has been great, like I mentioned earlier. There has been no slowdown that I have seen when navigating around the interface or when playing casual smartphone games. The game I mostly play is just Fire Emblem Heroes. I don't game a whole lot on my phone. Obviously, graphic intensive games aren't going to run quite as fast as a flagship phone, but if you just use this as a phone, say, make phone calls, text your friends, take pictures, browse social media, browse the internet, that kind of stuff, I don't find any slowdown when compared to another phone. Unless you're directly comparing them, there's really no issues here. And I think the main reason for that is because of the clean Pixel software that it runs. It makes it smooth and responsive. There's not a whole lot of bloat on here via unnecessary apps or animations or that kind of stuff. The Pixel experience runs well on a flagship phone such as the Pixel 4, but it also runs well on a budget phone such as the Pixel 3a. So performance has just been great. Now, moving on to battery life. This is an important aspect in any mobile device. Battery life on this thing, like every category, I know, it just keeps coming out, but it is great on this thing. I have gotten 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, and that's when the device is at about 20% is when I check that. I've only had this device die on me once, and that was because I left it uncharged for one night. So I used it for a day, didn't charge it at night, used it the next day, and I didn't charge it that night either. And then the next morning or whatever, I used it, and then it died, and I plugged it in. So it does have great battery life. It depends upon what you use the device for. If you're using it for really heavy, intense processes or something like that, then it's obviously going to die faster. But I mostly just use it for like internet browsing, watching YouTube videos, recording videos like this. Mostly due, I think, to the mid-range chipset, which this phone has a Snapdragon 670 processor, so it's not a flagship processor, but it helps to maintain battery life. It doesn't drain as quickly because it's not working as hard, which I think is a worthy trade-off. I don't think a lot of people need all the power that you get with the flagship processors. I think a lot of people would appreciate more battery life, and this has, I would say, I would argue that this has the best battery life of any Pixel phone. You look at the Pixel 4, all of the issues people have had with the battery life. The Pixel 3, people had issues with the battery life. The original Pixel, people had issues with the battery life. Not quite as much, but they did. I think even the smaller Pixel 2. This smaller device has great battery life. So if you want a small device, something that lasts a while, this is a great option. And then just looking at what comes in the box. So it comes with an 18-watt USB power delivery charger. So it comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. You can plug it in and it charges quickly. It's not quite as fast as something like the OnePlus 8 Pro, where they have warp charge and all that stuff, but it's not slow like the iPhone 5-watt charger is that comes bundled with many phones. It is a fast charger, and if you plug it in, what I found is if it's getting close to dying or something, say it's at like 40% and you want to charge it up, if you plug it in for half an hour, it's at 40%, it usually ends up being around 70% by that point. It's certainly not slow. So I really appreciate that they bundled that in there, especially considering that this thing costs $400, or if you get it on sale, $300. It's great that they include a fast charger. Just wrapping everything up that I was talking about before, like I've said, this phone is great, and I really, as much as I would love to find some faults in it and show that, there really aren't any major deal breakers here. This phone, I mean, it has nailed the essentials that you want in a smartphone. And looking at something like, say, the Nexus lineup, the Nexus 5, right? Let's just say many Nexus owners now own Pixel devices, or maybe they may have gone over to OnePlus, that kind of a thing. A lot of people love the Nexus line because it gives you great Android software and hardware for cheap. But the Pixel 3a, I would argue, is an even better deal than that Nexus lineup, because the Nexus lineup, you had top of the end processor, to like in the Pixel 5. I mean, not the Pixel 5, the Nexus 5, top of the line processor. But the camera was pretty bad, and the battery life was pretty bad as well. But here at the Pixel, you're trading that extra power, which most people and pretty much everybody will not use all the power that these flagship phones offer. You're trading that little extra bit of power for a fantastic, one of the best cameras in a smartphone, great battery life, and everything else about the phone is fantastic as well. So I really can't find any major faults with this device. Maybe just the main thing is just that it's kind of boring. There's really nothing flashy about it, but when you're buying a phone like this, you don't need anything flashy. I mean, it nails everything. Everything you would want in a phone, this thing probably has it, essentials wise. That is about it for this review. I'm filming this on the front-facing camera of the Pixel 3a just to give you some more samples. And it was getting really hot over there, and I think my phone video kind of stopped because the phone was getting too hot, because it's really hot today. But thank you all so much for watching. I got tons of support on my last Google Photos refresh video, and I truly appreciate it. There's so many comments and different things. People were asking questions and just giving me advice and all that stuff. I really appreciate it. All you new subscribers and all of that, thank you so much for just watching these videos. Hopefully they're useful to you. And yeah, if you guys have any questions about the Pixel 3a or pretty much anything else in general, put them down in the comments below. Unless it's spam. If it's spam, I probably won't reply to it. But if it's just a random question about the Pixel 3a, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Tea Time.